Hi, I'm Zohara, and this is The Soloist. Conversations on soul, music, education, life, and many things in between. Some announcements before we start. Parent Nurture course is off and running. It's sold out and registration is closed. A new course for Suzuki teachers is starting on 16th of August, Australia time, which is 15th of August, USA time. This is a course on parent education. Parent education for teachers. It's created for Suzuki teachers, but if you are a teacher that wants to learn how to work with parents of your students as partners in the learning process, you are most welcome to join us. This is a 4-week online course. I'll put the link in the show notes, and you could also visit my website, zohararotem.com, to find more information. And now to today's conversation. You might have noticed that I have not recorded an episode for some time now. Stronger than my sense of commitment to produce another talk was a commitment to not talk, just for the sake of talk. The voice that said, don't say anything if you don't have what to say, even if it's time-due. I listened, remembering that when I started this podcast, I promised myself to keep it authentic. I didn't have what to say while I was watching the world in its turmoil. I listened, I observed, I watched, doing my best to keep my center in the face of chaotic events. Choosing to see this time as a huge, big transition. Transition on all levels, planetarian and humanitarian. I could easily see the resemblance to giving birth. When a baby is ready to be born, mother is going through labor. Labor involves pain, suffering, blood, and sometimes death. And then there's renewal in the form of new human coming to the world. We are now in the time of labor. We are laboring a new world. I'm watching as I'm inquiring, how can I serve the newborn? How can I help in midwifing the world in labor? So I'm back now. Every morning, I have a ritual. Upon awakening, I pour myself a cup of coffee. It's not just the coffee, it's the morning coffee. It's called mud coffee or café bots. I put coffee in a mug, and it has to be a very big mug. And I pour boiling water from the mug to the jug as soon as it's boiling, not even 2 seconds later. If I wait a second, then I'll boil it up again because it really needs to be boiling hot. The coffee settles at the bottom of the cup and hence the name mud coffee. I take my coffee outside to sit in nature and write my morning pages. Most mornings I converse with soul. Some call it soul journaling. Some call it imaginative talk or creative writing. Others might call it a waste of time. I ask soul questions or tell her things. And then I stop and listen to what she has to say. I don't force this communication. I invite it. Sometimes she would reply after a little while. Other times after a long while. Sometimes it comes instantaneously as I ask a question. And sometimes not at all. Just pleasant, reassuring silence that invites me to rest in the not knowing. From the silence come thoughts, insights, memories, whispers from the past, a mixture of things. When I was little, I had a friend. No one could see her but me. So they called her imaginary friend. They were suggesting that I made her up. What they actually meant is that she was not real. But I'm telling you, to me, she was very real. The fact that they could not see her did not make her less important or less real. She was always with me, in good times, in bad times. As a single child until the age of 10, I was never alone. She was always there. Her name was Tzufi. I know, the adults among you will say, you named her Tzufi. And I'll tell them, no, I did not name her. This was her name. And please don't ask me with adult limiting understanding, how could she have a name if she was not real? Because as I said, she was real. Many children have these kinds of friends. And many others would not reveal them because they don't know how the adults would accept it. As one who's had this kind of friend, I could say with confidence that imaginary does not mean not real. It means coming from the dimension of imagination. Exactly as there is a physical dimension where we perceive things in 5 senses, there is a dimension of imagination. I don't mean illusion or fantasizing things, because we do not create or make imagination. We get, if we are lucky, to step in and out of this domain. It's there. Each time we visit this domain of imagination, we enrich our lives. Have I just used the word lucky? I think so. No, luck has nothing to do with it. Imagination is there for everyone who wants to travel there. Artists in all fields of art usually feel comfortable and natural in this realm. They are frequent visitors in the realm of imagination. Authors come back from their travels with their new books. Composers with their music. Artists with the canvas filled with colored expression. Poets with poems. Philosophers and visionaries come with their new ideas. And so on and so on. Children are frequent visitors there in this domain of imagination. All adults were children once, so this is something that everyone experienced at some time. So what happened to it later? How is it that some children continue to carry it through their adult lives until they die, while others lose it partly or completely? Probably they hear from people around them that imagination is for children. That you imagine it, if you imagine it, that means it doesn't have a real value. What else would parents say? Some parents are working hard to wean their children from imagination. Too many adults have very little appreciation, or not at all, to imagination. Sir Ken Robinson, in his book How Schools Kill Creativity, is telling a beautiful story that depicts it well. A little girl was in a drawing lesson. The teacher said, "What are you drawing?" And the girl said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." The teacher said, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And the girl said, "They will in a minute." People think that imagination is unwelcomed because people need to become practical or mature. They need to base their understanding on science. Albert Einstein is considered one of the most influential scientists of the 20th century. He said many things about imagination. Let me share a few. Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. In another place he says, logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. So there you go, imagination in the eyes and from the mouth of a scientist. The great artist Pablo Picasso said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up." This is totally connected to imagination. You can't be an artist if you leave the domain of imagination and creativity behind as you're growing up. We have to encourage children's imagination. We have to welcome our imagination. We have to allow it. The time we live in is calling for imagination. As we go through this uncertain time, we are called to weave a new world. And using Picasso's words, everything you can imagine is real. Everything you can imagine is real. So I invite you now and later to reflect about your relationship with imagination, to take time to write, to dance, to sing, to play, to move, to walk it. What does it mean to you? How can you see yourself in relationship to this such an important domain? Maybe you have some thoughts, maybe you have some bad memories, maybe you have some wonderful memories. Just say to yourself the word imagination. If English is not your first language, say it in your own mother tongue to evoke this deep feeling, the ones that you had as a child. I invite you to get a free ticket to this realm because the ticket is free. Admission is free, completely free. And it doesn't even have an expiry date. You can use it for life. I'd like to leave you with another quote. There is hope in dreams, imagination, and in the courage of those who wish to make those dreams reality. And interestingly enough, this quote is by Jonas Salk, the physician and medical researcher who developed the first safe and effective vaccine for polio. If you like this podcast, please feel free to share it with friends. If you have a minute, I would love you to leave a comment in iTunes, as it helps me to keep this podcast alive and to reach more people. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, Lots of love.